Welcome to Conversations with Coach. I am your host, Mindset and Confidence Coach, Christina Calloway. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Well, it might be afternoon, depending on wherever you are in the country. I want to thank you all for joining me. And for those of you who might be able to watch this again on replay, thank you all so much for your support. Each time I have a segment of Conversations with Coach, my goal is to generate a dialogue and on topics or a topic that will hopefully cause you, the viewer, to have a mindset shift and or increase your confidence. And so the topic tonight is family, food, and legacy. With tomorrow being Thanksgiving, I thought it would be a great time to have some conversation starters around this topic. My guest tonight is my sister friend, Georgia Wright. Please show some love in the chat as we welcome her to the conversation. Thank you so much, Georgia, for joining me tonight.
Christina, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Are you ready for Thanksgiving? Have you gotten yourself started cooking and all that?
Well, no. I'm one of those last minute Susie, I don't know. I'm able to pull it off. So like after I'm finished with your live, I'm going to the supermarket.
Oh, wow. So
Yes.
you definitely are a last minute Susie.
I am. I'm not gonna lie. And the reason why I say this is because I'm not preparing anything. I'm actually invited. I was invited to someone's home, but because my lifestyle is plant-based, I have to bring my own food. I'm sure I could pick around and find some things that are plant-based, but just so I can have a great experience, I usually bring a couple of dishes with me.
Ah,
yeah.
We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. So I'm excited to hear. I can't wait to hear how you share with us about that. So as I was sharing with our viewers, you and I talked about it. So we're going to be talking on food and family and legacy. But before we get started, can you share with the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm a wisdom wealth coach, and what does that mean? The 4 pillars of my coaching practice is family, faith, food, and finance. Because my background is in investments and insurance. I was a stockbroker and a trader and financial advisor, and was able to help a lot of people. I still do. But then several years ago, I got into this lifestyle where I was able to help a lot of people change the way they eat. And as a result, change their health. And that was due in part to a personal family matter that I had where I saw where food was able to help a loved one. And so I'm on this journey of wellness. And I think it's just the holistic approach that I take, because I think everything is interconnected, and, health is wealth and wealth is health. And so, it's like, how do I explain to my insurance and investment clients, that this is what I'm doing? And how do I explain to my health coaching client that I'm a financial advisor and this is what I do for my clients? So I marry the two because I know that, health is the number one thing. For everyone, it affects everyone from the baby to the senior citizen. So how could you talk about money and not talk about health? How can you talk about legacy and not talk about health? How can you talk about food and not talk about health? And how can you talk about faith and not talk about health?
Excellent. I love it. So you mentioned legacy, and that is one of the topics that I wanted to cover tonight. And when I think of legacy, obviously those of faith are very familiar with the quote in terms of leaving an inheritance. Another word for legacy is an inheritance to their children's children. And a lot of times when people think of that, they immediately think of money, finances, etc. It's not just only that. It also includes things such as having their affairs in order, if you will.
Yes.
And too often in our community, when it comes time to have someone dies, because there's two things in life that are certain. We are going to pay taxes and we are all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And in our community, unfortunately, when someone dies, either whether it's unexpected or maybe due to an illness, or they've lived a long, healthy life and they die. Oftentimes they find themselves having to go to crowdfunding to actually bury that family member. And it's not to begrudge or to look down on that, but it's just to say that something is amiss in our communities when we are using crowdfunding as a way of burying. Can you, with the holiday being tomorrow, can you share with our viewers a way to confidently have that conversation, since a lot of the family members will be gathering? How could they do that?
Well, tomorrow I'm just going to assume, because, we're still in a pandemic, but a lot of families are gathering. So even if it's not the large gatherings where the cousins are coming over or the distant relatives, you have the immediate family, like the siblings, the children, the grandchildren. This is really a good time, whether it's, you're in the kitchen helping your mom to cut things up and carve up the turkey. You have the elderly, I would say, like, your parents or your grandparents or your grand aunt, or you have relatives who don't have children. This is a time to kind of, say, hey, so-and-so, if God forbid something were to happen tomorrow, like, what would you like me to do? We're in a pandemic. We have to have those real heart-to-heart conversations. Like, we're in a pandemic. A lot of people did not expect to not be here, but they're not here as a result. And we're not talking about people in their 80s anymore, 70s. I mean, people in their 20s, children are not here. So what is the plan for the future? What would you like us to do in the event? People do not want to have those hard conversations. They're like, I don't want to ruin the dinner. I don't want to bring it up. I mean, I'm not saying you should bring this up at the table when after the grace is said and, there are 20 people sitting there, but, you're going to get your parents on a one-on-one, or you're going to get your cousin, pull your relative to the side. And, the moments where you have those down moments after you've eaten and, everybody's full and, that feeling is setting in, like you want to take a nap. This is the time where, you're laughing and you're a little more jovial, and it's a little bit more relaxing environment to say, hey, let's talk about this. Are you okay? Ask permission, because some family members not going to do very well with that. Is it okay if we talk about this? How do you feel if we talk about this? Who would you like to take care of it? Maybe not me, but I think you should talk to someone and seek out someone who you trust to handle your affairs if you're not here.
Exactly. I can remember my mom was an only child, and I remember my grandmother just being very adamant about she did not want to have that burden of just being, not, first of all, being upset because my grandmother's no longer there, and then having to plan everything. And so I remember with my grandmother, it was as a child, it was just so odd. But I remember my grandmother having taken care of all of her affairs at a very young age. And I remember going out to the cemetery and seeing her headstone, and the only thing that was missing was her death date. And I was like, why is this here? You're alive. And it was explained to me then. She goes, baby, you have to prepare for death. And then she took me through that conversation. It was scary, I will admit, as a child. It was scary hearing that, but it was a really good lesson to learn that what the steps were, what she did. She even prepared her own obituary for what to do at the funeral. It was very detailed. So let me ask you this. In terms of the financial part of the legacy and the preparing for when someone moves on, sometimes the conversation is difficult to have because of what people think the cost of it will be. Can you share with those that are viewing remove some of that misnomer?
Well, some people know this and some people don't, but the younger you are, the cheaper life insurance is, right? So life insurance costs for the same amount of coverage, let's say $100,000, is cheaper for a 30-year-old than it would be for a 60-year-old. So life insurance is one of those things where you want to get it as, as soon as you start acquiring debt and assets, it's something to look at. Does everyone need it? No, but a large majority of the population needs life insurance, right? And you want to get life insurance when you're young and when you're healthy, because the older you get, you might have some ailments, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. Those things are not life threatening per se or terminal illnesses, but they're going to affect the way you pay, the amount of money that you pay. So I always tell people, get it while you're young. I mean, you could be paying $40 a month for $100,000, depending on your health, right? But the older you get, the more expensive it is. Now, you still can get insurance when you're a certain age. It's going to be very expensive, but guess what? It's better than paying $10,000 or $30,000 for a funeral. And you have situations where people are online, they set up GoFundMe accounts. And I don't think that should be your legacy, where your family members, they're collecting monies from strangers and relatives and friends to give you a burial. So like I said, it's not a conversation that people want to have during the holidays, but it's a real conversation because it should be had, because like you said, death is certain, and that's just something that we have to face. And we're going to have to deal with it one way or another. Whether you're prepared or unprepared, you're still going to have to deal with it.
Exactly. And for some people who say, well, I don't have any assets, what is there that I can get? Because there is something else out there. For instance, there's life insurance, and then there's a burial insurance. Can you talk with them about the burial insurance?
Burial insurance, also called final expense insurance, that's just for funeral costs. Really, that's not to leave anything to your children and to leave to your grandchildren. And truth be told, I tell people all the time when they get these small policies, do not have more than one primary beneficiary. Because if you have two children and you say 50-50 and it's a $50,000 policy, and you give John 25 and you give Mary 25, John might not want to bring back his 25. And Mary might not want to give anything out of her, because in her mind, she's like, this is what my mom left for me. She's not thinking this is for your funeral or for his funeral. So I would always suggest that you find the most responsible child and you let that child be the beneficiary. It doesn't have to be a child, because there are people out there who have children and they're not responsible. So whoever you trust, you let that person be the beneficiary. But not only unknowingly do this, but you have a conversation. Hey, I have final expense insurance, and you are the person who I'd like to take care of my expense. And you get that person to agree, because you also do not want to put a responsibility on someone and not let them be aware of it. And then you also choose a contingent beneficiary, just in case that other person cannot fulfill their obligation. The second person in line will step up.
That's excellent information. That's a good segue into the next topic that I wanted to cover, which is family. So we are upon Thanksgiving, and we are having gatherings as they may be, considering that we are still having to be mindful of COVID. And as families often do, there are going to be some family members that may not respect the boundaries of others when it comes to having certain conversations or asking certain questions that maybe they should not ask. And in certain families, maybe they have a little bit more alcohol than they should, and they get a little bit more freer.
A little rambunctious. Yes.
Yes. And so what are some thoughts as it relates to how people should handle questions being asked, such as, when are you getting married? Or are you seeing anyone now? Or when are you going to have kids? Or, things such as that.
Well, I don't know if you've been seeing the hashtag, the Thanksgiving clapbacks, where someone might say something like that, and you'll say, but I won't repeat the other things that the people say. But the point is, you could just respectfully and, politely just say, that's just not something I wish to discuss right now and right here. But thank you for asking, though. Now I can think of some other things you could say, but I won't say that. You could do whatever you're grown. But I would say the right thing to do would just be listen. Christina, I just don't want to discuss that right now. This is not the place. Call me though. We could talk about this offline, but I don't want to discuss this in front of everybody right now. It's my business.
As Tabitha would say, as Tabitha Brown would say, that's my business. Right. For some people, I know it just puts them, it ruins it because, again, those are people who don't understand boundaries.
Yeah.
And they use that setting to feel a little bit more free.
Yes.
In terms of, okay, now I have an audience and therefore I can do this. If I could just share with those who are viewing, or if you know of someone who does this, asking questions such as, when are you going to get married?
Mm-hmm.
Or especially if someone's just newly married, when are you going to have children?
Mm-hmm.
Asking that question anytime, not just at holidays, but anytime you are asking someone that question, be mindful of the fact that you don't know what that couple is going through.
Yes.
You, even as a family member, you may not know if they have just recently miscarried.
Mm-hmm.
You may not know if they are suffering from infertility.
Yep.
You may not know exactly what is going on because that's so very personal. And just because you are family does not mean that you are privy to every secret detail that's going on behind their closed doors.
Yes.
And really, when you think about a question such as, when are you having a baby? That's very intimate.
Yes.
And no one needs those types of intimate details unless the two individuals are wanting to share it. If they initiate the conversation, that's completely and totally different. And so I would just recommend that when you're having those types of conversations, be mindful of the fact that just read the body language of the person that you are addressing and respect their boundaries. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, you have every right, even for families, as Georgia has said, is just to say that is not a conversation that I want to address in this setting. If you are interested, you and I can talk later on, and just stick to your grounds.
Yeah.
I used to have family members that would all the time want to address the size of the women. Oh, you sure have put on weight. Okay, well, I don't know any woman that wants to be told that ever.
Especially at a dinner table.
Especially at a dinner table. And so it's not even so much about clapping back, but it's also about just letting them know. And most of the time, they're your elder. And so, you know, we've always been taught, respect your elder. Now that I am an elder, I'm like, well, that's disrespectful. And I was like, well, that's not a comment that I find to be uplifting at all.
Yes.
And it doesn't speak well of you. And I will let them know that.
Do you think it's a generational thing? Because I find that my generation, the person who I am, I can't speak for anyone else. I don't like to put people on the spot. You know, I might pull you to the side, like, so girl, what's going on with you? You know, like, so tell me. And, you know, are you seen anyone? But that's a one-on-one. I'm not going to sit at a table like, so tell me. That's embarrassing. It's like I'm putting you on the spot. You might want to tell me, but you might not want to tell my cousin and my sister. You might not want them to know.
Correct.
So I want to get, if I care enough to know, I'm going to pull you to the side, like, come on, girl, let's talk. Like, what's going on with you? But I find that the older generation, they're kind of a little bit more unbuckled.
Right. In terms of what we call pouring tea, I'm not really sure. The older generation, I just think they're just kind of little busybodies. And I think that they just kind of enjoy doing that. And I'm not really sure, but I think that we can learn a lot from just from their mistakes. They didn't always get it right. And I think a lot of times just them us learning from their mistakes and not
Yes.
passing down that type of generational curse is really good. So the takeaway from the family thing, just make sure if it makes you feel uncomfortable, have the confidence to speak up for yourself in a way that is not disruptive to the event, but not just for Thanksgiving, but always. Don't hold your boundaries and don't let anyone, whether it be family, friend, or foe, make you feel uncomfortable. And Ingrid, yes, you can share this on your page. The next one, I am so excited about talking about this topic with you because you have cooked for me and I want you to talk about this with everybody. You mentioned in the beginning that you are plant-based. And I know that when I first became vegetarian and I went to the very first family Thanksgiving, it was as if I had like cut somebody's arm off. I got looked at like I was a three-headed monster. Like, what you mean you're not gonna eat this food? I'm just like, it is not personal. I just
it's nothing against you. The turkey looks good, but
well, it didn't. But I wasn't gonna lie.
Well, I mean, it's the way it's prepared and presented.
Right. So for our listeners who, in terms of maybe they aren't plant-based, but maybe as we get older, our digestive system changes. I know. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I turned 55 last month. And
you look good.
Thank you. And Homegirl came in here like the double nickels came in here strong, and she and I are having some conversations. But with that being said, there are just some things that my digestive system just doesn't like anymore. And somebody watching may be the same way. It's like, gosh, I remember loving this so much at Thanksgiving, but I don't like it. But I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You being plant-based, how do you approach that? What would you share with the viewers on how to approach the holidays or just eating out when you eat differently from others?
You know, it's not as hard as you think. And so much has changed over the past 5 years, 6 years since I decided that I was going to go plant-based. You know, initially you had to kind of come up with your own recipes and what you were going to make. But now you have vegan cheese, vegan sausage, vegan burgers. You got vegan turkey. Now it's not turkey, but it's made with tofu and other things. And some people can't eat tofu, some people can. But there's so many alternatives out there. Now, plant-based just means all it really means is that the meal is not prepared with any animal products, right? And you're saying hold the fish, hold the turkey, hold the beef, hold the ham, and hold the oxtail and the curry goat and whatever else. You're just saying hold the meat. But that doesn't mean, right, you can't have the vegetables unless, of course, you got meat in it. Because, you know, for the collard greens, there might be some ham hock, there might be some turkey neck, right? But you have people who make collard greens without meat. Right? So eat collard greens. The yams, you don't have to use butter. You can use Earth Balance, the vegan butter, or you can use Country Crock also has a vegan butter, a plant-based butter. You can use plant-based butters for a lot of your dishes that you would normally use regular butter for, regular dairy, butter, right? So you can make everything else. Mac and cheese, you got vegan cheese. Make your mac and cheese the same way you would. So this is what I would say for people who are plant-based. If you don't mind, make your own food and bring it. I do that. Every year I bring at least 2 dishes with me. So a relative called me recently and said, hey, would you like us to make you something? I said, no, you don't have to, because I'm not going to let anyone go out of their way. Now, if you happen to have a big old salad, that wasn't made for me. That was made for everybody. I'm going to eat some of that. So there are things there that are plant-based already right off the bat. Now, my children like hot chocolate. So guess what? I'm going to bring the coconut whipped cream from Ready Whip for the hot chocolate in addition to oat milk. So instead of regular whole milk, we have oat milk. Like nothing has changed really. So there's no inconvenience to anyone, but we also have to just be mindful of those relatives who come over and they're like, I don't eat meat anymore. Don't give them a hard time. That's all I say. Don't give them a hard time. Don't make fun of them. Just understand that they're in a season of their lives where they just don't eat that stuff anymore. And you might want to be in that season too. And you might be calling that same relative, asking them for recipes. So just be respectful, be kind, and just try to help in any way you can. But don't criticize the individual. Don't make fun of them. And it's just going to be a cinch if you look at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that you mentioned when you first came on that you came into the plant-based part because you had a family member that you were helping to get well.
Mhm.
And as much as you want to share about that, you can share, but talk about the benefits of plant-based and what it did for you and for that individual, and what they were going through at that time.
Yeah. When people think of plant-based or they think of vegan, they're thinking about a lot of processed artificial vegan meat and vegan eggs and vegan cheeses. I didn't prepare those meals for my husband. My husband was diagnosed with cancer, and I knew instantly that we really had to change the way we were eating. So we did a lot more fruits and veggies, just introduced so much more fruits and veggies into our diets and trying to find meat substitutes. Mushroom was one of the best things that we discovered. There are so many different varieties of mushroom. It was mind blowing. Like there's a mushroom that's called chanterelle mushroom. It's like chicken. I mean, so I would make curry chicken, curry mushrooms with that to substitute it for the chicken. Chickpeas, these things are so high in protein. Instead of white rice, we switched over to wild rice, which was so high in protein. The protein content is so high. Also for my children too, because at the time, since birth they were vegetarian, but at the time I switched them over. So we were able to replace our whole milk with plant-based milk. you know you graduate over the years, and you up your game and you upgrade. So we were doing almond milk, almond breeze, almond milk until we found out it was only two almonds in the box, right?
Yeah.
So now we're doing, you get your own almonds and you soak them, and then you blend them and you strain them and you make your own almond milk. So there are things that I learned along the way, but I noticed that my husband's health increased significantly on a plant-based diet. He was stronger, he had more energy, he was healthier, and I believe that he lived longer because his body didn't have to break down, the processed foods, the sugar, the carbs, the meat from the steak. People don't understand when you eat meat, it releases uric acid into your blood. And for someone who is battling pancreatic cancer and liver cancer, you don't want to deal with anything additional. The digestion of certain meats and certain foods is really hard because there's not as much fiber. And of course, when your liver is compromised, you need to make sure that you're eating things that are very nutritious and fibrous, so your liver is not working so hard to digest the foods in your body. And so we did a lot of juice, kale, carrots, beets, celery, you name it. If it's a fruit, if it's a veggie, we were able to juice it. And plant-based for me is really not about the fake meats and the different fake burgers and fake sausage. It really is about plants, eating more plants. Like I came by your house, and what was it that you had? A hemp, it was like scrambled egg, but it was made with hemp. It was
Yes.
all hemp.
Yeah.
It's like who knew? And it was
Right.
delicious. Like
Yeah.
who knew that you could scramble hemp food,
Mhm.
tofu, hemp, and have a delicious meal from that. So I discovered that, and now I mean I see the difference in my life. I'm able to maintain my weight and
Mhm.
lose weight when I need to because of the lifestyle.
That is excellent. I have enjoyed having you so much. We could go on and on and on, but I like to honor my 30-minute segments that I want to ascribe to.
Yes.
So this is where the viewers can follow you on Instagram at I am Georgia Wright.
Hmm.
And I encourage everyone. She is a phenomenal, I call her
Oh,
a chef. She says she's not, but let me
stop.
tell you,
Thank you.
she is a wonderful, wonderful
Thank
cook.
you.
And I am just blessed to have her in my life because when I was battling COVID, she brought me things and put them on my front door.
As a drive by, I was like, "Don't come outside, girl. I'm gonna just leave this stuff at you. Keep it.
But it
Keep."
was all fresh and it was all my juicing and everything. She brought it for me and left it at the front door. And anything made with love is definitely good for you, but it was all plant-based and juices, and She does do meal prepping as well, so reach out to her. But if you want any more information about any of the topics that we discussed, the legacy part, the financial part, the insurance part, the food and nutrition part,
The detox part.
the detox, she does.
You guys are going to need a detox after this Thanksgiving and Christmas, so hit me up.
Definitely get in touch with her. And I always like to ask my guests, what is the one small habit that you can leave with our viewers as it relates to any three of these: legacy, family, or food, that they can implement in their lives in the coming weeks leading up to 2022 that will make a difference for them?
Well, I have a few, but I will say this: what has changed my life? Reading labels. You have to know what you're eating. If I could just say something off the top of my head, that would be it. If you care about your health, read the labels. And once you read the labels, you need to understand, what am I reading? Especially sodium and sugar and fat. Those three things, pay attention to those three things.
All right, everyone, you heard it here, that reading the labels is where it's at. You want to know what you're eating, your sodium intake. You want to be able to make sure that that is limited. So the one habit that you can implement as it relates to food: read your labels between now and 2022. This is my website. This is how you can get in touch with me if you want to find out more on how to develop a confident and strong mindset. That's my website. You can also find me and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Christina Mindset Coach. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I appreciate you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you for having me, Christina.
Thank you so much.